Salt spray lashes the faces of men on the USS Lexington's flight deck as the sun burns white overhead. The air itself screams. 93 miles to the northwest, two Japanese fleet carriers, Shokaku and Zuikaku, have just turned into the wind. From their decks, 71 aircraft climb in perfect formation. 18 VAL dive bombers from Shokaku, 19 from Zuikaku, escorted by sleek Zero fighters that glint like thrown knives. Their target, Task Force 17. Their prize, the American carriers Lexington and Yorktown. On Lexington's bridge, Captain Frederick C. Sherman grips the voice tube so hard the metal creaks. Radar has painted the incoming strike as a solid wall of blips. "Launch everything that will fly," he snaps. Engines cough, roar, and thunder down the deck. Wildcats claw for altitude. Dauntlesses lumper skyward, bellies heavy with 1,000-pound bombs. But it's already too late to run. At 11:18 exactly, the first VAL peels off high above, flips inverted, and falls like a hawk. Its pilot, Lieutenant Commander Takahashi Kaku, lines the gray American carrier in his telescopic sight. He feels the familiar calm. He releases. The bomb drops away clean. A second follows, then a third. On Lexington, the klaxon howls air attack one last time before the world ends in fire. The first 550-pound bomb punches through the wooden flight deck just forward of the island and explodes in the admiral's country. Steel splinters scythe through bulkheads. A second bomb detonates on the stack, belching black smoke that rolls across the deck like a living thing. Then comes the torpedo. A Type 91 aerial torpedo slams into Lexington's port side at frame 54. The detonation lifts the entire 36,000-ton ship bodily out of the water. Men are hurled 20 feet through the air. Seawater and burning fuel oil blast up through ruptured decks in roaring geysers. Inside the hangar, avgas lines rupture. Blue flame races along the overheads faster than men can run. A chief machinist's mate sees the fire coming and has time for one thought. This is it. On Zuikaku's bridge, Vice Admiral Takagi Takayo lowers his binoculars and allows himself a thin smile. Through the haze, Lexington is already listing, wrapped in smoke and flame. Japanese pilots circle overhead like vultures, radioing victory. "She's finished," one reports, "burning from stem to stern." Takagi nods. The Americans have lost their first fleet carrier of the war. History will record this day as Japan's triumph, but 1,000 feet below, on a flight deck that should no longer exist, something impossible is happening. Blackened, half-naked men, faces burned raw, uniforms on fire, form human chains with hoses that are already melting in their hands. Damaged control parties, led by Lieutenant Commander Duckworth, wrestle blazing aircraft over the side to keep the flames from spreading to loaded bombs. Aviation machinists' mates kick burning debris clear with bare feet. And in the middle of this inferno, the yellow-shirted flight deck director, Lieutenant Edgar Burton, raises one scorched arm and begins to spin it in frantic circles. Because planes are coming back. American planes. And the deck, impossibly, unbelievably, has to be ready. The smoke is so thick, it has weight. It presses down on the flight deck like a living ceiling, black and boiling, lit from beneath by orange fire that never seems to die. Men move through it like ghosts, silhouettes with red-rimmed eyes, skin blistered, lungs raw from gasoline vapor. Lieutenant Commander Herbert Duckworth staggers across the steel, one shoe gone, the sole of his foot leaving bloody prints. He grabs a firefighter by the shoulder, a 19-year-old kid from Nebraska whose eyebrows are completely burned off, and screams over the roar, "Clear the forward deck! We've got birds coming in hot!" No one argues. No one asks how. They just obey. A 5-inch gun tub forward is still burning like a torch. Sailors roll 40mm ammo overboard by hand, shells hissing as they hit the sea. Someone finds a wrecked Dauntless on the port catwalk, its bomb still hung, fuse ticking from the heat. 4 men lift the entire 1,000-pound bomb, arms shaking, faces inches from the nose fuse, and heave it over the side. It disappears into the blue without exploding. No one cheers. There's no time. At 12:07, the miracle begins. The wind shifts just enough to tear a ragged hole in the smoke. Through it comes Lieutenant Commander Bob Dixon, leading Air Group 2's scouting squadron, VS-2. His Dauntless is bingo fuel, hydraulics shot out over the Japanese fleet an hour ago. Behind him, 10 more SBDs limp in formation, some trailing fuel, one with half a wing fabric burned away. They have just sunken the Japanese light carrier Shoho, Dixon's own words still crackling over the radio. Scratch one flat top. Now they need a deck. Any deck. On Lexington, the yellow-shirted director, Lieutenant Burton, stands in the one clear patch aft of the island. His left arm is charred black to the elbow, but he raises the paddles anyway. The LSO on the port quarter waves a green flag that should be impossible. Dixon drops flaps, lowers his hook, and aims for a deck that is cracked, smoking, and littered with glowing debris. The first Dauntless slams down, tail hook snagging the third wire. The cable sings. The plane jerks to a stop 10 feet from a burning crater. Ground crews swarm it before the prop stops spinning, pushing the plane forward by hand to clear the landing area. One by one, the others come in, some hard enough to shear landing gear, one skidding sideways into the catwalk in a shower of sparks. Japanese observers high above can't believe what their eyes are telling them. Lieutenant Commander Takahashi, the strike leader who bombed Lexington an hour ago, circles at 15,000 feet and stares down in stunned silence. He had watched his own bombs explode. He had seen the torpedo hit, yet American planes are landing on a carrier that is visibly on fire. On Zuikaku's bridge, a young signals officer turns to Vice Admiral Hara Chuichi and blurts the impossible. "Enemy carrier is recovering aircraft, sir." Hara's face hardens. "Nonsense." He raises his own binoculars. For a long moment, the only sound is the wind across the bridge wings. Then Hara lowers the glasses, very slowly. "She is launching again," he says, voice flat with disbelief. Because on that burning, listing deck, flight crews are already turning planes around by hand, spinning them on one wheel, tails lifted by sheer muscle. Armorers are slamming fresh 1,000-pounders into bomb racks, while fuel hoses snake across steel still hot enough to blister skin. And at 12:41, exactly 1 hour and 23 minutes after she was reported mortally wounded, Lexington's catapult officer drops his flag. The first Dauntless roars down the deck, lifts off through a curtain of smoke, and claws for altitude. Then another, and another. Takahashi watches them climb towards him, bombs beneath their wings, and feels something he has never felt in 6 months of war. Cold, creeping dread.
High above the burning Lexington, Lieutenant Commander William O. Birch, Jr., commanding officer of Bombing 5, VB-5, rolls his Dauntless into a climb and feels the old anger rise like bile. An hour ago, he had watched Japanese Vals peel off on his own ship. He had seen the bombs fall. He had seen the fire. Now the same men who refueled and rearmed him on a deck that should be a tomb are shoving him back into the sky with one order: find the enemy carriers, hit them hard. Birch levels at 14,000 feet and turns north-northwest. Behind him, 17 more Dauntlesses form up, wings rocking in the turbulence rolling off the sea. Escorting Wildcats slide into position, pilots giving thumbs up through cracked canopies. They are tired. They are low on fuel. Some have blood running down their necks from flak wounds. None of them speak on the radio. Words feel too small for what they are about to do. Aboard Shokaku, Vice Admiral Hara has just recovered his own strike. Pilots crowd the bridge, jubilant, slapping backs, describing the American carrier wrapped in smoke and flame. Hara allows himself the faintest nod. The battle is decided. The Americans are finished. Now the mop-up. Then the lookout screams. High in the blinding sun, black specks appear, growing larger, falling toward them at impossible speed. American dive bombers. On Shikoku's flight deck, deck crews freeze in disbelief. They have no fighters aloft. Their own aircraft are still spotted forward, being refueled, bombs still exposed. There is no time. The first Dauntless to roll in is Lieutenant John Powers, 29 years old from New York City. He has already been hit once today. His gunner is dead in the back seat, radio shot away. Powers pushes over at 18,000 feet anyway. The deck tilts vertical beneath him. Wind screams across the windshield. Shikoku swells in his sight, growing monstrously fast. Anti-aircraft fire stitches the sky. Black puffs, tracers like red hornets. Something punches through his wing. He does not pull up. At 1,500 feet, he releases the 1,000-pounder. The bomb tumbles end over end straight for Shikoku's bridge. Powers never pulls out. His Dauntless smashes into the flight deck just aft of the island in a bloom of fire that engulfs half the ship. The bomb he dropped detonates a heartbeat later, right on the forecastle. Secondary explosions follow instantly. Aviation gasoline, ready torpedoes, stacked bombs. Shikoku lurches like a kicked beast. Flames leap 200 feet into the air. One after another, the Dauntlesses follow Powers down. 3 more direct hits. 2 near misses that rupture the hull and flood the engine rooms. In 90 seconds, the pride of the 5th Carrier Division is a shambles. Flight deck torn open, steering gone. Speed falling off to 12 knots. On Lexington, far to the south, the launch officer watches the last Dauntless disappear into the smoke and lowers his flag. The deck is almost empty now. Only burning oil and twisted metal remain. Men stand in silence, faces black, staring at the sky where their friends just flew to avenge them. Then, the deck beneath their feet shudders, harder than any bomb hit yet. Deep inside the wounded carrier, far below the waterline, a ruptured aviation gasoline vapor line has been quietly bleeding death into the air for 3 hours. The temperature inside the lower handling rooms climbs past 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Men stripped to the waist, faces shining with sweat and oil, pass ammunition by hand, unaware that the very air they breathe is now a bomb. At 2:47 p.m., a spark. No one will ever know the source, kisses the invisible cloud. The explosion is not loud, it is total. A dull, concussive whump rolls through the hull like the heartbeat of something ancient waking up. Bulkheads bow outward. Steel doors blow off their hinges and cartwheel down corridors. In the forward generator room, 23 men simply cease to exist. On the flight deck, the blast lifts the entire ship a foot out of the water and slams her back down. Men are thrown flat. A lieutenant on the catwalk sees the deck plates ripple toward him like a steel wave before he is hurled into the sea. Captain Sherman staggers on the bridge, ears ringing. The voice tube spits out a single word from Damage Control Central. Fire, below, uncontrollable. For the first time all day, Sherman's face goes slack. He knows what that means. Aviation gasoline vapors are still leaking. Every compartment below the hangar deck is now a torch. The next explosion will be worse, and there will be a next one. At 2:55 p.m., the second detonation comes, bigger, deeper. It ruptures the main transverse bulkhead at frame 80. The ship physically bends in the middle with the sound like a mountain breaking. Men in the mess decks feel the deck rise under their feet and then drop away, as if the ocean itself has opened. Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher, watching from the cruiser Minneapolis 10 miles away, lowers his binoculars and says quietly, "She's gone." On Lexington, on the hangar deck, Commander Morton T. Seligman, Damage Control Officer, tie gone, shirt burned off, refuses to accept it. He leads one last party below into corridors already glowing red. They drag hoses through knee-deep burning oil. They seal doors with their own bodies. They buy minutes. Minutes the crew will need. At 3:25 p.m., the third and worst explosion tears the heart out of the ship. It lifts the forward elevator 50 feet into the air and drops it back like a broken toy. The flight deck splits open from port to starboard. A pillar of fire and smoke shoots 500 feet high, visible for 40 miles. Seligman never comes back up. Now the order every captain dreads is spoken aloud. Prepare to abandon ship. But even as the first men start toward the edge, something happens that will be talked about in wardrooms for the rest of the war. The Japanese are still watching. High overhead, a Zukaku reconnaissance plane circles the dying carrier, pilot dictating calmly into his radio. Enemy carrier dead in water. Heavy explosions, crew abandoning. Then the tone in the Japanese pilot's voice changes. He sees the life rafts hitting the water in perfect order. He sees destroyers racing in, already lowering boats. He sees Lexington's band, yes, the band, assembled on the stern, playing the Star-Spangled Banner while men slide down ropes into the sea. And most of all, he sees the ship herself. She is listing 27 degrees to port. Her guts are on fire. Her back is broken. Yet, her battle ensigns are still flying. One at the foremast, one at the main, and a third, enormous battle flag somehow still snapping from the stub of the mainmast. The Japanese pilot falls silent for a long moment. Then, almost reluctantly, he adds a final line to his report. The enemy is abandoning ship in good order. Morale appears extremely high.
The list is now 35 degrees and climbing. Men walk the flight deck like it's a hillside, boots sliding on oil-slick steel. Below, the fires have found the main magazines. The heat is so intense that paint on the outer hull is blistering and peeling in sheets. Captain Sherman stands on the starboard bridge wing, cap gone, hair singed, watching the last of his crew go over the side. He has refused to leave. 3 times his flag lieutenant has begged him. 3 times Sherman has shaken his head. At 5:52, the fourth and final internal explosion rips upward through the forward part of the ship. The entire bow lifts, then slams down with a sound like a giant hammer striking an anvil. The flight deck tears open the rest of the way, folding back on itself like paper. From the destroyer USS Phelps, 10,000 yards off, a young signalman watches through binoculars and starts to cry without knowing why. At 6:15, Sherman finally steps onto the platform of a whaleboat. He is the last man off the bridge. As the boat pulls away, he turns, stands in the stern sheets, and salutes the ship he has commanded for less than a year. Lady Lex is alone now. The sea around her is dotted with rafts and bobbing heads. 2,535 men, almost every soul aboard, are alive because of the discipline they showed in the last 4 hours. Destroyers circle like anxious sheepdogs. Cruisers lower every boat they own. At 7:12, the sun touches the horizon, turning the smoke column blood red. Lexington rolls farther. 40 degrees. 45. Her screws come clear of the water, still slowly turning from residual steam. The great bronze blades flash once in the dying light. Then, with infinite grace, the carrier that refused to die when every rule said she should rolls onto her port beam. For one impossible second, she hangs there. 36,000 tons balanced on her side, guns still in their turrets, the name Lexington still visible in faded gold on her bow. Men in the water stop swimming. They simply watch. At 7:56 p.m. exactly, the gallant lady slides under. There is no suction, no final plunge,
just a slow, almost dignified descent. The battle flags disappear last, still flying. Aboard Zuikaku, far to the north, Vice Admiral Hara receives the final reconnaissance report. He reads it once, folds the paper, and places it in his pocket, without comment. Later that night, in the privacy of his cabin, he will open a small lacquered box and remove a single photograph, his wife and children. He will stare at it for a long time. In the Coral Sea, the destroyers switch on searchlights. White beams sweep the darkening water, finding rafts, finding men, finding brothers. Someone starts to sing, softly at first, then stronger. By the time the last survivor is hauled aboard, 2,000 voices are carrying Sweetheart of Sigma Chi across the empty sea, Lexington's favorite song. High above, the Southern Cross climbs into a sky wiped clean of smoke. The first carrier versus carrier battle in history is over. Neither Shukaku nor Zuikaku will reach Midway in fighting condition. The Japanese advance toward Port Moresby has been turned back, the first time in this war that Tokyo's tide has been stopped cold. And somewhere beneath 2 miles of warm Pacific water, a great ship rests quietly on her side, her deck once again clear, waiting for the next launch that will never come. But every man who sailed on her that day will carry one image to his grave. A burning, broken carrier that refused to quit while there was still a single plane to launch, a single man to save, or a single enemy left to strike. Lady Lex is gone, but she took the measure of her enemies first and taught them in fire and steel what American sailors are made of.